Alright, so I was looking through all of my cards and putting aside my normal traps, looking for better cards, specifically trap cards to add to my Labrynth deck. If you guys don't know already, the main floodgates are all limited to 1 due to the recent ban list they hit, which means that most control decks will not have the same level of control anymore. That being said, I'll need to look for alternatives. I can still play them, but 3 Gozen and 2 Rivalry is not an option anymore. So as I was looking around, going through the cards I won at locals a while back, I found a card called Gigantic Thundercross. Initially, I didn't want this card in the deck because it allows the opponent to special summon after I finish banishing their monsters. Then I thought, what if letting them special summon wasn't a problem? What if I only used this card at the right time when they've already exhausted their resources? So the first thing I did was spend 3 days looking around in the forums, trying to find out if anyone was already using this card. Turns out that many people have used the card, but they've used it in a branded deck, and they've all said it was a terrible card, potentially one of the worst. So I thought, how effective would 1 copy of this be in a Labrynth deck? So I went through some test hands and I was very impressed, and there were many pros to having this card in the Labrynth deck. This card is searchable off of Lady due to it being a normal trap. It can be reset again and again by Lovely's effect. Also, if one of the monsters you decided to banish was on the field, that would count as a monster leaving the field, which means it would trigger Welcome's effect in the graveyard, Lovely's effect to destroy, and Ariana's effect to draw, if they were on the field. And finally, this card cannot be ashed if Lovely was on the field, due to Lovely's floodgate effect for your normal traps. But there was a few cons to this card being in the deck. There would first need to be a difference in the amount of banished cards between both players in order to utilize the effect. I've been in situations where the difference would only be 1, and you don't really want to banish 1 monster only for them to special summon straight afterwards. That would trade 1 for 1, which is quite lame, and they get a special summon afterwards. Now you could argue that after activating a card like Extravagance, there would be a 6 card difference in banished cards, which means you can banish 6 monsters in turn 2, provided you had Extravagance and this card in turn 1. However, assuming you play 2 copies in a 40 card deck, that would mean you have a 1 out of 20 chance of drawing Extravagance when the game starts, which is very low. The same thing would apply for Evenly Matched, since I run 2 copies of that as well. So, after a nice chunk of wins and only a few losses, I ultimately decided to put this in the side deck and use my current knowledge of the meta to determine whether to add Thundercross back into the main during game 2. My thoughts were as followed. If I'm up against a deck with little to no banish power, or a deck that doesn't banish to get its resources out, I never touch Thundercross. However, if I'm up against a deck that needs to banish, then this card goes straight in, especially if I lose the first match. And this is why knowing your strengths and weaknesses of the other decks are very important and can aid you into making decisions on what cards are going to aid you the most in most matchups, and what to do against specific matchups. If you'd like to see examples of this card being put to use, then drop me a follow on TikTok, that'd be much appreciated. Also, if you're a Labrynth player, just consider using this card or consider putting it in the side deck. Go through some test hands, see how it operates with your current deck, and make the decision on whether you would like to keep the card or not keep the card. And if you already use this card in your control deck, let me know in the comments. Till next time.